Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics. I am Thor. Chapter 81. Originally, Thor planned to use his Myriad Worlds GPS navigation system to search for Wanda's traces. Although that thing covers the entire universe, it is not accurate enough when it comes to the target location. At most, it is only accurate to a few hundred kilometers near Sokovia distance. Compared with the entire universe, this accuracy is actually very high, but it is still very painful to find people, let alone such a large area. Even a small town is enough. Are there any other characteristics? Jin Bin also became serious, and he also understood that Thor must have some special purpose in asking him to find a child who has never been masked in a foreign country, and it cannot be purely ill-intentioned. What more features? Thor wondered. How many more does Wanda have? There are not 1,000 but 800 people with the same name in Europe. How can I check for a name? Take a look at them one by one. Jin was a little speechless. If it was just him who wanted to find someone, he might have actually done so. It would be no problem at all to catch a few people with his energy. But Thor obviously had a special purpose in looking for that girl, and it would be bad to offend him hastily. Thor couldn't help thinking, what are the characteristics of Wanda? You can't say she's particularly big, can you? It's really a beast if you say this. Besides, how old is Wanda now? After pondering for a few seconds, she said, she has a twin big brother or younger brother named Pietro Django Maximov. Is that enough? Enough. As long as this person really exists, I will definitely find it. After hanging up the call, Thor suddenly had a new idea. His right hand was raised high, and with a burst of lightning, Mjolnir appeared in his hand, and at the same time, the black armor covered his whole body. This is his fighting state. He took out the Tesseract, closed his eyes and tried to teleport through space. Rubik's Cube didn't respond. Thor was taken aback. The system lady couldn't help but reminded. The prerequisite for Tesseract teleportation to work is that you have to know the basic location information of the destination, just like Kamar Taj's teleportation magic. Unless you plan to teleport randomly, there will be certain dangers. Is that so? Then it's enough to know the destination. Yes. But, do you really decide to do it? Open Wanji GPS navigation function. Find target. Thanos. On the system interface, the already not so rich points have been reduced by another 200,000 points, and they are almost at the end. At the same time, the entire black universe appeared on the system panel, and the picture continued to zoom in along a point, and galaxies appeared one by one, and then expanded, and finally locked on a huge spaceship. Although its shape is somewhat different from the one in the movie, and its size is larger, Thor still recognizes it at a glance. Holy Place Number 2, the location of Thanos, the headquarters of his Legion of Destruction. Since Thanos' hometown Titan Star has been exhausted due to population explosion, it has become Thanos' new base. Thanos is sitting in this moving palace, fighting for years, dominating the space, approaching the 6 infinite gems step by step. This spaceship is bigger than what you see in the movie. It's not so much a spaceship as it is a sky fortress, with a size that can't be seen at a glance, almost reaching the level of a city. Perhaps, only such a huge military fortress can provide a steady stream of troops to support Thanos' countless years of conquest and tyranny over the entire universe. Compared with the huge Kree spaceship back then, it is simply the gap between a sparrow and a phoenix. Tesseract flashed a faint blue light, and Thor stepped into the space crack in front of him and disappeared. Where are people? The figure of Hela appeared in the place where Thor had just left. When Thor was fully armed just now, she sensed it. She thought that someone had invaded, but it seemed that she had guessed wrong. Is this the energy breath of the Tesseract? Hela muttered to herself. In a gloomy room, Thor's figure slowly appeared. Looking at the surrounding scene, I couldn't help complaining. Purple sweet potato essence has bad taste. The really huge battleship is arranged like a pig's nest. No wonder it was smashed into scrap iron by Carol. A group of soldiers noticed something was wrong, and immediately took out the energy guns in their hands, wow, and rushed up. Crack. A bolt of lightning erupted from Thor, enveloped them, and instantly reduced them to ashes. Drip. The host kills Chiruta soldiers, and gets mission points +1. Drip. The host kills Chiruta soldiers, and gets mission points +1. Drip. The host kills Captain Chiruta and gets mission points +10. With just one meeting, the task points on the system panel became 25 10,000ths, which is the score that can only be achieved by eating more than 20 purple potatoes. Sure enough, killing monsters and upgrading is the kingly way. As Thanos' base camp, Holy Place Number 2 is heavily guarded, and the movement here quickly attracted attention. Another team of Chiruta and several vanguards rushed up, and then became cannon fodder again. The thunder power of awakening made Thor surrounded by a storm of thunder, and those scum soldiers couldn't even get close. Even the giant ape, which is a powerful unit, still couldn't bear the hammer that condensed thunder and phoenix force, and the body was torn apart under one hammer. The number of points has increased rapidly, reaching thousands in less than half a minute, but Thor still finds it too slow. Mjolnir was raised overhead, and the propellers of an ordinary helicopter spun at high speed. A black tornado storm quickly condensed and formed, getting bigger and bigger, and countless lightning bolts made violent explosions. Under the horrified eyes of Thanos' Legion, the tornado began to move, sweeping towards them. Like the wind and clouds, no matter whether it is Chiruta or the vanguard, even the mighty giant ape can't resist this force. Once caught in the storm, it will be crushed instantly, leaving no bones left. Boom! The tornado storm is constantly advancing in Holy Place Number 2, leaving nothing behind, and Thor's points are also rising crazily. Drip! Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Thanos Terminator today's goal, the current points are 10,000 10,000ths. Stopping the storm, looking at the messy scene and the fearful enemy army in the distance, Thor nodded in satisfaction. Today's task is completed, just accept it. The Tesseract flashed in Thor's hand and disappeared. Less than half a minute after Thor left, an extremely angry roar sounded. Who the hell dares to invade the headquarters of the great Titan Lord Thanos? Ebony Maw looked at the ruins like a demolition site with a livid face, and he had already arrived at the fastest speed, but Holy Place Number 2 is too big. Earth. Thor's figure appeared in the yard. Where have you been? Hela frowned and asked, did you go to war? Although he didn't have any marks on his body due to the whole process of abusing food, but this terrifying murderous aura couldn't be concealed. Yes, I went to raid the lair of a cosmic tyrant. The tyrant of the universe. Hela's face was serious. With Thor's arrogance, the one he can call a tyrant is definitely a superpower. How is the situation? I didn't even have a chance to meet him. He has too many soldiers. Although the combat strength of individual soldiers is not as strong as that of Asgard soldiers, there are tens of millions of them. Hela was speechless for a moment. You must know that the entire Asgard, even if it is full of soldiers, has less than 100,000 people. Thor also sighed in his heart. Although he played this wave very smoothly, the consumption was also very high. Thanos' Legion is indeed powerful. No wonder that during the ultimate battle in the original book, almost all the decent forces that appeared in the entire Marvel series were united and suppressed by Thanos' army. Human sea tactics are very effective when there are enough numbers. Not only is there a large number of troops on Holy Place 2, he even saw many other units outside the window, including a large number of Leviathans, the iconic Donut spaceship, and even Chiruta's Hive mothership. It is conceivable that the number of Thanos' army is far greater than what I imagined, and the number of Holy Place Number 2 is just the tip of the iceberg. In the original book, Thanos only brought a Holy Place Number 2, which made the Avengers almost unable to carry it. Fortunately, I didn't want to call Carol rashly to hit the spaceship to carry out the beheading plan. Otherwise, with the iron attribute of this woman who refused to turn back after hitting an iceberg, I'm afraid I will suffer a lot. On Holy Place Number 2, Ebony Maw listened to his subordinates report the situation with a livid face. He is too powerful, like a real god, we can't fight against him at all. Captain Zarita narrated in shock. It is worth mentioning that, unlike the uncivilized cannon fodder on the Hive mothership, which cannot be separated from the Hive, the people on Holy Place 2 are elites, and even if the mothership is destroyed, they will not lose their combat effectiveness. Boom! A steel thorn pierced its head, and Ebony Maw looked tyrannical, and the elegant and gentlemanly demeanor he had always maintained disappeared. In this world, there is only one person who is qualified to be called a god, and that is our great master, Lord Thanos. Quote. There was a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Although I don't know how the other party suddenly appeared and disappeared, he is likely to invade again. This time, let him come and go, and confess to the great master. Early the next morning, Thor glanced at the sleeping widow beside him, and got up quietly. What's the matter, uncle? It seems rare for you to wake up so early, what's the matter? A lazy voice came, and Natalia rubbed her sleepy eyes. Although she is an agent, when there is no task, she behaves like Thor. Thor pampered her and rubbed her head. It's nothing serious, just kill a few people. Looking at the 0.10 displayed in the taskbar, his sledgehammer is already hungry and thirsty, and he can't wait to fight another wave of gorillas. The navigation system only needs to consume points once a year for the same target, so he directly locked on Thanos' position again. Facing holy place number 2, he randomly chose a point on the edge, the gem light flashed, and disappeared instantly. As Thanos who kills and tyrannizes everywhere in the universe, he has always been the only one who fights others, and no one has ever dared to attack his lair. Thor's raid yesterday was not very harmful and extremely insulting. So today, the security on Holy Place number 2 is obviously much stricter than yesterday. However, it was of no use. Boom! The crack in space opened, and before anyone arrived, endless lightning shot out from it, and a wave of clearing came first. Stepping out of the space bathed in thunder, Thor raised his hammer and turned on the tornado mode again. Damn it! When the alarm of the invasion came, Ebony Maw, who was squatting on the other side of the spaceship, reacted instantly. However, he was separated from Thor's landing point by an unknown number of compartments, and the daylily was cold when he arrived. Sure enough, the Black Order arrived late after Thor left, as if to clean up the battlefield. Ebony Maw, didn't you say he'd be on the left near C-1356 warehouse? The boss of the Black Order, Corvus Glaive, asked coldly. Ebony Maw lowered his head silently. My mistake, the opponent may be more difficult than we imagined. On the third day, Thor came again, and Black Order's face was livid. On the fourth day, Thor came again, the Black Order impotent and furious. On the fifth day, Thor came again, and the Black Order had given up treatment. On the sixth day, Thor came again, and Corvus Glaive, the boss of the Black Order, finally blocked him this time. Ignorant mortal, you don't know what a crime you have committed. Corvus Glaive grinned cruelly. Corvus Glaive is the head of Thanos' 5 Obsidian generals, second only to Thanos. He is bloodthirsty and chooses to be loyal to Thanos in order to fight everywhere. He is a pair of lovers with Proxima Midnight, who is also the 5 generals of Obsidian. Well, in fact, in Thor's view, it's just 2 ugly men hugging each other to keep warm, living together as a partner. The second leader of the Dark Legion, Corvus Glaive, made a move that surprised Thor. He waved his hand. Come on, take him down, life or death. Thor, all the subordinates, many little soldiers looked at each other in blank dismay. Brother, are you asking us to die? Thor is also a muggle, and these guys spend so much time trying to block him, just to send soldiers to give him experience. As everyone knows, Corvus Glaive is also a flustered horse. Although he has never been masked, Thor's daily record is statistic. Basically, tens of thousands of people can die in the blink of an eye. No matter who is in front, anyway, all kinds of deaths are enough. At this time, other members of the Black Order are still rushing over. He is panicking alone. Send small soldiers to delay time, and learn about the opponent's combat routines, by the way, commonly known as sacrifice. After a few seconds of silence, finally a group of Vanguard guards rushed forward screaming, "Wow, wow," followed by Chi-Ruta soldiers. Crack. The sky was full of thunder and light pouring down, cracking. Everywhere it went, there were ashes everywhere. Corvus Glaive. Seeing that he became a bare-bones commander in the blink of an eye, Corvus Glaive finally gave up, raised his double-edged gun and rushed forward roaring. Thor exploded in an instant, jumped up, and Mjolnir slammed down on the head with a destructive momentum. Corvus Glaive hastily raised his spear above his head. Boom! There was an earth-shattering loud noise, and the entire cabin trembled violently. The huge amounts of shockwave caused the rest of the Black Order who had just arrived to be pushed out. The leader Ebony Maw's face changed, psychokinesis launched to peel off the smoke and rushed in first, and he was stunned by the scene in front of him. Most of Corvus Glaive's body has sunk into the seemingly indestructible floor, and the long spear that killed Heimdall in the original book in his hand has been bent at 90 degrees. Thor stood before him. Flames and thunder surged above Mjolnir, and Ebony Maw had no doubt that the next blow would decimate the Black Order. Black Dwarf threw the giant chain-bladed axe in his hand at Thor, and rushed towards Thor with a strong wind, trying to encircle Wei and rescue Zhao. Thor glanced sideways, and swung the hammer. Boom! The hammer and axe collided, and the giant axe flew out at a speed several times faster, and the other end grabbed the Black Dwarf at the end. Boom! The huge body was dragged by the axe blade and flew upside down several hundred meters before hitting a huge pillar. The whole body was embedded in it, unable to break free for a while. Ebony Maw also took advantage of this gap and quickly used psychokinesis to split the floor to save Corvus Glaive. Corvus Glaive had no obvious injuries, but his condition was already very poor. He stood tremblingly behind Ebony Maw. Proxima Midnight was supporting him, but it looked like he couldn't move anymore. As for Black Dwarf, will this still be embedded in the pillar and struggling to get out? The guy at the bottom of the chain of contempt has been forgotten. Only Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight and Supergiant are left to play. Due to Corvus Glaive's offline, Ebony Maw has temporarily become the new boss, although he would rather not be the boss. After all, Thor almost halved their team with just 2 moves, and Ebony Maw realized that this idea was not so hard. Seeing that Thanos might not be here for a while, Ebony Maw gritted his teeth, stretched out his hand, and threw countless steel and concrete towards Thor. Boom! The blazing flame ignited and burned everything around it to ashes in an instant. Ebony Maw was horrified to find that his psychokinesis could not reach Thor's side before being destroyed by this surging force. Phoenix Force, enough to burn everything. No move, then go to hell. The flames rushed towards us. Not good. Ebony Maw's complexion changed drastically, and his body retreated extremely. Psychokinesis was pushed to the maximum, and even the entire ceiling was pulled down, blocking Thor. Boom! Thor smashed it open with a hammer and passed through the wall. A large group of Vanguard guards were not afraid of death and besieged them, as if to buy time for the Black Order. The Phantom of the Phoenix spread its wings, and a huge energy burst out instantly, sweeping across all directions, covering a radius of hundreds of meters. Boom! When the power calmed down again, there was 1,000 dead silence all around. And in the taskbar of the system, there were more than 3,000 points just now, and it instantly filled up to 10,000. Thor fell back to the ground and was about to chase the Black Order when his eyes froze suddenly. Not far away, a big knife flew towards him at high speed with the momentum of destroying everything. Even the tearing air sounds were too late to come because the speed was too fast. Overlord Skyblade, Thanos' sword. It was Thanos' all-out blow, and Thor had a feeling that no matter how much he dodged, it was inevitable. The divine power in his hands quickly gathered, he raised Mjolnir, and slammed it hard at the flying saber. Bang! Boom! A shockwave that was more powerful than before spread from the point of contact to the 4 directions, and the surrounding cabin partitions were torn apart in an instant. Hundreds of meters were reduced to flat ground, and the ground seemed to be scraped off a layer. Amid the sound of the explosion, the Overlord Sky Blade was smashed open and flew backwards. Thor was hit by huge amounts of power and took a few steps backwards before barely stopping. His wrists went numb. As expected of Thanos, he was truly terrifying. "Host, are you all right?" Miss System's cautious voice came, with a rare hint of worry. "No problem. What's the matter?" Thor stared intently at the burly figure slowly appearing in the smoke. "Your consumption is very high, and the Phoenix Force has exploded at almost full capacity. The current state is very unsuitable for fighting against Thanos, so I suggest." "No need." Thor flatly refused. "If you don't even have the guts to do it, what are you talking about rewriting fate?" The young lady was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Then you, be careful." Thor ignored her, and used the probe technique on Thanos, who was walking slowly. Name: Thanos. Strength evaluation. Except for the lack of magic ability, all aspects stand at the top of the world. And the strong physical strength and willpower are enough to resist most magic and spiritual attacks. Top defense, top strength, top speed, top fighting skills, top willpower, top endurance, top reaction speed. Remarks: possess the strongest adaptability and reaction speed in the universe, and can find ways to break through in various disadvantaged situations. The actual combat ability is extremely strong, and he is especially good at defeating opponents stronger than himself. FK, this description is too scary, it's clearly the Marvel version of Chow Feng and Chow's leader. It's a pity that he looks a little ugly, otherwise he would be a standard protagonist. Thor calmed down and decided to act first. Mjolnir was lifted up, the entire interior of the cabin was covered with clouds, and thick thunderbolts condensed on Mjolnir. Crack. With thunder in his face, the big knife in Thanos' hand blocked the front and spun rapidly like a propeller, splitting the lightning abruptly. He secretly cursed all kinds of unscientific things in the Marvel world, and threw Mjolnir out. Mjolnir condensed almost half of his divine power, and slammed into Thanos' purple potato face in a straight line. The thunder and flames escaping from the hammerhead made Thanos feel a little tingling even before he got close. Thanos tilted his head slightly, dodging the powerful blow, and charged forward with the Overlord Sky Blade in his hand, and then... boom! The returning Mjolnir was unstoppable, slamming into the back of Thanos' head. Thunder Force and Phoenix Force exploded at the same time, and the unexpected blow caused Thanos to fall forward on the spot, and fell to the ground. With Mjolnir back in his hand, Thor jumped up without hesitation, and slammed a heavy hammer on Thanos. Thanos, who hadn't got up yet, rolled over, avoided the inevitable blow, and then slapped Mjolnir into the air, grabbed Thor's neck with his other hand, and fell heavily to the ground instantly. Boom! In just an instant, Thanos turned defeat into victory and regained the initiative. Odin's son, I admire your courage, and I also admire your stupidity. There was a sneer on Thanos' wrinkled face, and he was about to announce the winner when his face suddenly changed. Thor grasped the hand holding his neck tightly with both hands, but he didn't struggle and let go otherwise. The originally clear eyes instantly flashed a deep purple thunder, and at the same time, Thanos only felt the hand choking his neck go numb, and his movements were also stagnant. Boom! A terrifying thunderbolt several hundred meters thick suddenly appeared in the pitch-black universe, piercing through the indestructible armor of Holy Place No. 2 in an instant, and blasting violently behind Thanos. Thanos' armor was pierced by one blow, and the 23 lightning strikes did not stop, constantly bombarding Thanos' broken armor, tearing the mighty body of the Titan. Even as strong as Thanos, he couldn't help but groan in pain. Being bombarded by the continuous thunder, he was almost nailed to the floor and couldn't move. Not far away, the remaining members of the Black Order, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, and Supergiant shuddered as they watched this scene. Just now they saw Thanos turn the tide of the battle and capture the opponent alive, and they wanted to step forward and shout, 666, to Thanos. After all, the subordinates are not good enough, and it is already unqualified to ask the boss to play in person. At this time, he must show his loyalty. Seeing this destructive thunderbolt, Ebony Maw blocked it with his hand, and the three of them stopped walking immediately. After all, if Thanos is dissatisfied, he will be scolded at most, and it is really terrible to be struck by such a fierce lightning. Ebony Maw silently calculated, this blow hit them, except for the most resistant black dwarf who might be able to withstand it. The others estimated that a few lives would not be enough to die. The violent lightning strike lasted for about half a minute, and the entire battlefield was in a mess, scorched black everywhere. The purple sweet potato essence has turned into black sweet potato essence, which is crushed by a collapsed ruin and piled in it. Dead, Miss System murmured, with some uncertainty in her tone. She felt the power of this thunderbolt. Even if Hela, who had not returned to Asgard, was hit, it would be more or less ominous. How is it possible? Thor smiled wryly and shook his head. This is Thanos, he can be hacked to death so easily. Back then my father wouldn't let him or Asgard. Speaking of this, there are still some slight regrets. Among all the elemental energies, the destructive power of thunder is the most powerful. I am struck by the most violent lightning in history, which is really effective against Thanos. If it can last for 3 to 5 minutes, maybe it can really work. Cooked. It's a pity that the problem that magicians are most afraid of is that there is no magic. Since Thanos is not dead, you are in danger. You are in a bad state. If you don't leave quickly, you may be. There was no need for a system reminder. Thor knew it in his heart. The Tesseract flashed, and disappeared into the space crack. Clatter. Among the ruins not far away, Thanos slowly poked his head out, his expression full of gloom. In the manor, Thor's figure appeared, panting heavily. Thanos deserves to be Thanos. The strongest villain lives up to his reputation. Are you looking for trouble? Hela suddenly appeared in front of him, took a closer look, and said in surprise, "Your power is almost exhausted. Is that Titan named Thanos so strong?" At this time, if she suddenly made a sneak attack on the opponent, she might really succeed, but she seemed to have forgotten this choice. Well, there is still an enemy as powerful as Thanos in the universe, and Asgard is not suitable for introversion at this time. By the way, where's your hammer? Hela suddenly found that Thor came back empty-handed, and couldn't help but feel puzzled. But she knew that her younger brother was very precious to Mjolnir. Hammer. Thor was taken aback. It seemed that he was thrown on Thanos' spaceship just now. Stretch your hand into the air for a move. Holy place number 2, the atmosphere was extremely tense. Today, the Destroyer, who has dominated the entire universe for many years, was approached by someone to beat him up and let him leave calmly. The purple sweet potato essence has turned into black essence, and I don't know if it was burnt or simply blackened. Suddenly, in a hidden corner, Mjolnir, who was lying quietly on the ground, moved, and then flew towards the earth with a swish. Boom _ There is another hole in the side panel of Holy Place. The price of pretending in front of Thanos was heavy, and Thor's divine power took a week to recover. In the past few days, he has been honest and has not provoked Thanos anymore. After all, Thanos is full of anger at this time. Who knows what kind of net will be waiting for him if he goes there rashly. On the 7th day, Thor couldn't sit still. The daily task of fighting Thanos had accumulated for a week. Looking at the eye-catching 0.70 logo in the taskbar, he knew that he had to do something. This time, he was more prepared. After all, he was going to FK Thanos. The space crack disappeared, and Tienur's figure appeared in a hall of number 2 Holy Place. This time, it happened to be Thanos in front of him. The Black Order was staring at him, except that Corvus Glaive still had a plaster cast on his hand, which seemed very inconsistent. At this moment, Thanos didn't seem to be injured at all. He didn't have to do it directly, and he spoke lightly. "I know, you will definitely come again. The last time we met, we did our hands and didn't have time to say a few words. This time we had the opportunity to say hello again. Crown Prince of Asgard, son of Odin, your strength is indeed beyond my expectations. However, you are still far behind your father. No matter how strong your potential is, it is only potential, and it is worthless until it is realized as real power." Quote. Thanos squinted his eyes, and what he said was sharp. Really, Thor was also happy to talk to him. "I also know you, Thanos, the overlord of the world, the survivor of the destruction of the Titan star. Well, it's a good thing you didn't die, otherwise the Titans would be extinct." Quote. Thor speaks more poisonously. Thanos obviously looked a little unnatural. He took a deep breath when he was poked in the pain, and said in a deep voice, "This is why I am here. What I have to do is to prevent the tragedy of Titan from appearing in the entire universe." Relying on massacre. Thor curled his lips. Although he is not the Virgin, but at least everything he does has a reason, and he never goes around killing people for no reason. This is mercy. You humble ants can't understand the painstaking efforts of adults. Ebony Maw yelled loudly. Now that Thanos is by his side, he feels that he is very confident, and he doesn't look as cowardly as last time. Thanos stretched his neck and made a cracking sound. He picked up the Overlord Skyblade and said calmly, "Don't worry, although you offended me, I will still leave ordinary people in Asgard. However, it cannot be seen." He raised his saber and rushed forward. This time he was sure to win, and he was not even going to give the opponent a chance to use Tesseract. When he thought that he would get his first infinite gems soon, his heart was filled with excitement. As for Thor, who brought the gem to his door, as a thank you, he decided to give him a decent death. Then, come on. Thor closed his eyes, raised Mjolnir with a loud roar. Atka for Asgard. The body swelled, and Thor, who was originally 1.9 meters tall, instantly reached more than 2 meters, on the same level as Thanos, and his body was even more stout. Boom. The gigantic Mjolnir intersects with the Overlord Skyblade, releasing huge amounts of shockwave. This time, Thanos struck with the force of a sprint, looking evenly matched. Bang, bang, bang. In just a few seconds, the two sides fought several times, and Thanos performed more and more difficult each time. After relying on his skillful skills to forcibly fight hard, he quickly retreated with his strength. However, before he could stand still, Mjolnir threw it at him. This time he found that he couldn't dodge anyway, so he had to raise his sword to block in front of him. Bang! The Overlord Skyblade successfully blocked the iconic skill, Storm Hammer, in the state of the god of the gods, but a terrifying force came from both hands, and Thanos was dizzy on the spot. Not good. The Black Order instantly realized something was wrong, and immediately stepped forward to help. Ebony Maw, who moved the fastest on the spot, used psychokinesis to pull several steel chains from the ground to try to wrap around Thor, but the steel chains disappeared as soon as they fell on Thor. Even the Ancient One's magic can be completely immune, so how can a mere Ebony Maw be able to affect the Eternal? Fly up and kick Proxima Midnight to Thanos. The remaining supergiant of the Black Order stood in front of him, rushing forward hysterically. Thor lifted Mjolnir and slammed it down. Thunderbolt. Bang. With a single hammer, like whack-a-mole, supergiant was smashed into meat paste on the spot, and received a bento box without even a single line. From now on, the Black Order officially becomes the 4 generals of Black Yao. Host, the points are already full, you still have 10 seconds. Supergiant is far more valuable than ordinary miscellaneous soldiers, and it instantly fills up the upper limit of points accumulated for a week. Miss System cheered excitedly, and Thor didn't waste any time, once again raised Mjolnir and smashed it down on Thanos, who had just awakened. In the state of the gods, Thor's various abilities have been significantly improved, and they have surpassed Thanos in an all-round way. It has to be said that Thanos is really strong against pressure. Even if he is at a disadvantage, he can still forcibly support him. Even if Zishu took several hammers on his face, he couldn't knock him down. The 30-second real man state ended, and Thor turned on the teleportation at the last second, and disappeared without a trace. Seeing Thanos with a bruised nose and swollen face, Ebony Maw and others dared not speak. The sudden appearance of Thor at the manor did not surprise the girls. This kind of thing has become a daily occurrence recently. In the days that followed, he began to rack up points to his heart's content. It is sent from time to time every day, and it comes to number 2 holy place. If you encounter a minion, you will enlarge the range of AoE to the dead, and if you encounter Thanos, you will immediately turn on the transformation and throw a hammer to beat it. A blow to Thanos' face with a hammer is worth thousands of chiritas. Thanos, here I come out and fight. Thanos, come out, don't be like a turtle. Purple sweet potato essence, your grandpa Thor is here. 10,000 points has basically become a fixed reward every day. If you don't meet Thanos, you can get it done in 3 minutes, and if you meet an Annihilator, 30 seconds is enough. As for the Black Order, it has been avoiding Thor in various ways now, and it is rare to see one that runs faster than a rabbit. This is a boss who can beat Thanos violently, and he can't afford to provoke him. The only regret is that the recovery ability of Mie CDCB Ba is too strong, and the result of the battle in just 30 seconds is not enough to cause many injuries. The idea of snowballing blood every day is doomed to be impossible. The most important point is that he doesn't have a weapon strong enough to break defense. Your own weapon, Stormbreaker, is the most suitable, but there is a problem: the material is not enough. Whether it is Mjolnir or Stormbreaker, the main material is Uru alloy, a precious metal that can only be cast by Nidawi, the Dwarf Kingdom. Another important material is the handle of the axe. Thor is not going to settle for it. The most suitable material for the axe handle is not metal, but another material. Definitely not Groot's branch. That thing is just a poor man's version that can't be used, and the actual effect will be greatly reduced. The handle Thor really wants is a branch from the World Tree, just like Mjolnir. Even Gungnir, the Spear of Eternity in Odin's hand, is also a limb of the World Tree. I vaguely remember that in the movie, the hammer was crushed by Hela, and the handle of the hammer was intact, which shows its strength. It's a pity that Thor knew before coming to Earth that there seemed to be some problems with the World Tree, and it might not be usable. What's more, Stormbreaker is a king's weapon. If it is made before ascending the throne, the meaning is probably the same as that of a mortal prince making a dragon robe. In the absence of an important plot, time passes quickly, and a few years pass by in a flash. For Thor, 10,000 points a day is a very happy thing, and making Thanos unhappy makes him even happier. It has to be said that Thanos has a lot of soldiers. Calculated at a rate of 10,000 a day, he has killed more than 20 million soldiers, but there is still no decreasing trend. The speed of this replenishment is too fast to support Jungshi's consumption. But it's not completely unaffected. Thor has clearly felt that the quality of the individual soldiers of the Thanos Legion has declined in the past 2 years. Thor didn't notice, but a green-skinned girl next to Thanos noticed him. Adopted daughter of Thanos, Gamora. She came from a planet where Thanos carried out a massacre plan, and all her family members were killed by Thanos. Although Thanos always regards her as his own, she still deeply hates Thanos, a tyrant, and hopes that someone can punish him. The appearance of Thor gave her hope, and she saw Mie's loss in the fight every time she met Mie. It is said that the other party is the son of a powerful god king, a veritable second generation of gods. Excellent in every way, just too savage. Gamora couldn't help thinking to himself, in the future, when I look for a partner, I also want to find a second generation god, preferably someone who can punch Thanos for me. The most important thing is to be gentle. This kind of fighting is too barbaric, no way. At least, God can sing and dance. The time has entered 2008, which is a year of major changes in the Marvel Universe. This is an awards ceremony for scientific research, and Tony Stark on the big screen is still as coquettish as ever. To explain a little bit, Tony Stark is not really the prodigal second-generation ancestor. He is really capable. After all, this guy has an IQ as high as 250, which is much better than the combined IQ and EQ of Miss System. Especially in the research of various high-tech weapons, this product has almost supported more than half of the United States' achievements in the field of weapon research. However, at this time, Stark, as usual, did not accept the award on stage. He is now leading a group of models to gamble, showing off his local rich attributes from time to time, causing bursts of exaggerated screams. Well, Thor finally understands why Brother Fa is so handsome when he lights cigarettes. He burns real money. At this moment, it is the second shareholder of Stark Industries, Obadiah Stane, who receives the award instead of Stark. A middle-aged fat man with an amiable and kind-hearted face. In addition to making money, this guy's biggest role is to wipe the ass of Stark's various behaviors, and 15% of happy people. Hey, this is the treatment that the protagonist should have. In an elegant seat of the casino, Thor sipped champagne alone and silently complained, a fat man who can make money, help pick up girls, and wipe his ass when he has something to do, is a proper standard for the protagonist. Besides, this and there are two fat guys. System, why don't you make a sound? The little sister came with a helpless voice. If Obadiah's kind can be counted, then you can too. Don't treat Jin as a human being. Gold. As soon as Thor mentioned it, he became angry. Let's forget about this fat man. I doubt his ability. I haven't been able to find someone for 8 years. Mada, although Sokovia is not small, but you have not been able to find anyone for 8 years, even if Eastern Europe is not your main business scope, it is pretty bad. Miss System was very calm about this. Isn't this very good? There are no routines, and the hero and heroine meet in the vast crowd. Stop. Thor interrupted her thoughts. First of all, I have nothing to do with Wanda, and I don't have any other ideas. Then, she has CP. The young lady asked back. Then will you let Vision be created? Won't. Oh, man. Thornton felt a little wronged at the time. He was purely determined to win Mind Gem. If it was given to Vision, it might be detained by Thanos just like the original plot. After all, except for the time when he was born, all the highlight moments of Vision were put in the Civil War, and when he faced Thanos later, he became the scum of the war. However, when it comes to Vision, he thought of another thing. By the way, since Vision doesn't need to be built, so much vibranium can be used in the future, can it be used to make a body for you? I thought Miss System would be very happy, but after a moment of silence, she flatly refused, no. Thor was surprised. Why? Asking for flowers. Point 0. I do not want to leave you. Speak English. Ugly refusal. I'm not Tony Stark, but if I were, I'd say, I'm honored to receive this trophy, it's an affirmation of me. On the stage, Obadiah first praised Stark, and then complained a little about his style, which caused a burst of laughter from the audience. At this time, Tony Stark was sitting opposite Thor. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to Afghanistan to demonstrate to the military with my latest researched Jericho missile. How about it? Do you want to visit it? Although his face was calm, the look in the corner of his eyes revealed his mood. Experimenting with your own well-designed weapons is a very cool scene, and definitely needs an audience. And Thor happens to be the one he most wants to pretend. Faced with Stark's invitation, Thor flatly refused. Although Stark is a genius, he obviously still can't get rid of the shackles of Earth's backward technology. The strength of the missiles in Asgard is at the level of several versions that have been eliminated. Thor wonders if there is a chance to take him to Wakanda to see the world. Besides, Thor knew that Stark's visit would not be peaceful, and he would suffer a lot. And this will also be a turning point in his life, from an ordinary inventor to a superhero. One day later, after Tony Stark demonstrated missiles in Afghanistan, he was attacked by terrorists. None of the fellow soldiers survived, and Stark disappeared. Before the news came out, Thor had already received a notification from the system. Drip. Congratulations to the host for completing the task, Thanos Terminator. The point reward settlement is in progress. Congratulations to the host for getting the reward, 27 million points. Mysterious reward settlement. Mission completion evaluation. Perfect. Congratulations to the host for getting the highest reward. Rewards are being issued. 790. The task was completed, and the accumulated points in it instantly changed Thor's balance, which was almost bottomed out, to more than 20 million. In addition, since the blow to Thanos has far exceeded the standard over the years, he has also received the highest level of extra rewards. Just what are these 3 question marks? System, come out and answer, what the hell is this highest reward? Why does it always show that it is being distributed? When will the distribution be completed? The young lady rolled her eyes. How can I answer you asking so many questions at once? Answer one by one. Do not know. Thor suddenly felt that the young lady refused to have a body because she was afraid that she would be beaten by herself. At last, after researching for a long time, Thor decided to give up for the time being without finding out why. Anyway, he is indispensable, and his salary can be delayed for 3 to 5 years these years. According to Miss System, it is likely that the mission rewards are rather special, so it is difficult to describe them in words. He suddenly raised his head, smiled and said, "Come out, it's 13 o'clock, your latent level is far worse than your aunt's." A few seconds later, a slender figure ran out of the darkness. His face was somewhat similar to that of Peggy Carter, and there was a bit of sullenness on his face. "Damn, why do you find me every time? Also, it's the 13th, not 13 o'clock. Thor shook his head and laughed. Although he is not a professional agent, he gets along with the 2 top agents day and night, and has developed a very strong anti-reconnaissance level under his subtle influence. The young agent in front of her, Peggy Carter's niece, Sharon Carter, although she is also a very good agent, compared to other characters like Peggy Carter and Natalia, she is still not far. Thor didn't answer her question, but teased, "What are you doing sneakily? Are you not afraid of being seen by your aunt?" Sharon Carter curled her lips and said indifferently, "What's the matter? I'm here for something urgent, and the director wants to see you." Late at night, in the box of the bar, Thor sat opposite a tall woman with a glamorous temperament. Thor looked up and down, and said, "You are pretty good, how about you come and hang out with me?" The woman on the opposite side was stunned for a moment, and she looked at Thor speechlessly. "This man is too arrogant, he cheated at the first time we met, and the master is still there. Hey, are you going too far? How dare you goad my corner in front of me? Don't even think about it, this is my deputy." A black stewed egg on the side jumped up, gnashing its teeth and looking at Thor. Well, it would be inappropriate to call him Black Braised Egg in Captain Marvel at the time. After all, Nick Fury at that time still had a flowing head. But now, he has really become a corned egg, and he has also become an old bastard. Even in front of Thor, he can let go of himself. Thor glanced at him and said in surprise, "You're here too. I'm sorry, I didn't see you just now. You can't see me as a living person. Do you have a gender filter on your eyes?" Nick Fury's already dark face turned black into charcoal. "I said, do you have a special hobby, especially female agents? 2 legendary female agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. both live in your house, and Agent 13 has been living in your house for 3 days. Running to your house at both ends, and that hacker under Melinda May too. How can you foul people's innocence out of thin air?" Thor categorically denies it. "I'm just happy to give them a home." Even Nick Fury, who has a professional quality of 3.8, almost couldn't help the stomach upset, not to mention his adjutant Maria Hill, who looked at Thor dumbfounded. It's the first time I've seen someone talk about scum in such a fresh and refined way. Even Tony Stark, who is a hot girl all day long, is not so shameless. However, when he thought of Stark, Nick Fury also remembered the business, and said seriously, Tony Stark is in the hospital. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. American Comics. I Am Thor. Chapter 91. Sure enough, the only thing Nick Fury could care about at this time was Stark. I know. Okay, I knew it a long time ago. When I went to Afghanistan to display the latest missiles, I was targeted by terrorists. It seemed that they were called the Ten Commandments Gang. They attacked him with grenades while he was in the car. All the soldiers with him were killed. Only Tony Stark didn't know what happened. Trace. Nick Fury stood up suddenly. How do you know so clearly, don't you? Maria Hill is also wary. As far as she knows, Thor is also a shareholder of Stark Industries, if she has any special ideas. What are you thinking? Seeing that they were obviously thinking wrong, Thor said angrily, if I want to do something, I can make 23's house sink into the bottom of the sea by a tsunami tomorrow. It doesn't take such trouble. Nick Fury was also suddenly nervous just now, but he immediately figured it out, waved his hand at Maria Hill, and whispered, no, it can't be him. But I did know that Stark would be kidnapped. Thor continued. Do you remember the last time I mentioned Stark to you? When was it? Last time, Nick Fury muttered to himself, and said quickly, when discussing that plan. What, you want to save Stark in exchange for Washington to agree to your terms? Frowning, he said helplessly, although I really want to agree, it's impossible for those people in Washington to agree. I'm afraid they would rather give up Tony Stark than set this precedent. Thor shook his head, smiled lightly and said, no, I don't have that plan. I mean, the superhero candidate I told you about. Looking at the somewhat dazed Nick Fury and Maria Hill, he continued, perhaps because of Tony Stark's consistent bad behavior, all of you have ignored a possibility. In this kidnapping, Tony Stark, who survived the catastrophe, he will repent and completely metamorphosis to become a real superhero, not an ordinary inventive genius. Nick Fury's eyes widened. What you said at that time was not actually fooling me. Wait, you also mentioned Captain America. Thor stood up, waved his hand and said, this is not something that should be discussed now. By the way, a new era has arrived, and there will be more and more superheroes soon. What you have to consider now, no longer it is to find a superhero, but to deal with the relationship between heroes. This time Stark is at a low point in his life. He was injured by shrapnel from the exploding grenade and lost consciousness at the scene. When he woke up, he was already lying in a cave with a battery reactor on his chest. It was installed by a scientist who was also captured by terrorists, Ethan. When Stark was still unconscious, Ethan took out most of the shrapnel for him, but there were still many small fragments that could not be processed. A battery had to be installed to prevent shrapnel from entering his heart. Speaking of which, Stark is also lucky, because those terrorists originally received the request to tear up tickets on the spot, but Jericho, who had just experimented before, saved his life, and the death sentence became a reprieve. Terrorists took a fancy to this thing and decided to make extra money by using Tony Stark's waste, and specially sent materials to make a missile before he died. Who is Stark? The most famous playboy in the United States, the son of the legendary businessman and patriotic inventor Howard Stark, a genius boy who grew up in the eyes of the public since he was a child. Even the President of the United States was polite to him. Not to mention these terrorists, even if Thor used this bird attitude to force him to do things, he would not be able to cooperate. So he was beaten. The dejected Stark had to start work with Ethan. First of all, upgrade the reactor in the chest 857 times. This thing is related to my life. Stark is still very afraid of death. It should be said that everyone is afraid of death, but sometimes the righteousness has to be done. Building missiles. Impossible. The terrorists only said that they would kill him if they didn't make missiles, but they didn't say what would happen if they made missiles. It's not in his character to pin his hopes on the integrity of these bastards. With an IQ of 250 to the maximum, he began to manufacture the first set of armor in his life. Mark I, the original Iron Man armor. That night, the terrorists announced their responsibility for Stark's kidnapping and released a series of videotapes, which made the United States erupt. For a time, the equity of Stark Industries plummeted. And in Thor's manor, a mysterious guest ushered in. "Mr. Thor, I've heard of you for a long time." A middle-aged fat man with a friendly face stepped forward to Thor and stretched out his hand attentively. As a result, Thor didn't seem to react, and just nodded to him. "You know me." Sure enough, he is a rich second generation who doesn't know how to behave. He is not qualified to know Thor's true identity, he only thinks that he is the descendant of Captain Bu Laika of the Roaring Commando. Obadiah cursed secretly in his heart, but his face was really calm. "Don't you know each other now? As shareholders of Stark Industries, we definitely need to move around more." Thor watched his performance with cold eyes. Seeing his indifferent attitude, Obadiah couldn't help being a little puzzled, but he continued, Mr. Thor, you should have seen the recent news. Mr. Stark was kidnapped, and now the stock is always it's going down. We should do something." Thor seemed to be a little interested in this meeting, and asked, "Then what can I do?" "After the group of terrorists receive the money, just put Tony Stark back." Obadiah's contempt for Thor adds a little more. Terrorists can still collect money and release people. Is this guy a mallet who has lived in an ivory tower since he was a child? Sir, you don't know. Anyone who is in the hands of terrorists basically has no chance to come back. Those lunatics will definitely tear up their tickets, so Mr. Stark is probably already. Quote opening square bracket dot quote. He said, wiping away tears. This guy, it's a pity that his acting skills don't go to Hollywood, so Thor accompanied him to act. Why is this happening? Then wouldn't my so many shares be rotten in my hands? Obadiah was very satisfied with his reaction, and immediately patted his chest and said, "Well, as someone who watched Tony grow up, I really don't want to give up his efforts." "Well, if you sell your shares to me, I won't take any of them. If you are cheap, just pay the current market price." He is sure that the other party may reject such a proposal, because after Stark's accident, the stock price will only continue to fall, and the best way is to sell as soon as possible and stop the loss in time. Although it will cost him a little money, he doesn't care. Although he is the number 2 shareholder, his shares are far from enough. Even without Stark, it would be difficult for him to restrain everyone. But if you add Thor, it's almost the same. Thor didn't think about it so much for a while, but Miss System has already analyzed everything in her mind for him. Looking at the confident Obadiah, Thor showed a strange smile. "I'm sorry, Stark and I are good friends, and I don't want to abandon his property at this time." "You have never cared about other than receiving dividends." Obadiah cursed secretly in his heart, and continued to increase the price. "I can buy it at the market price plus 5%. Not for sale. Not for sale. Dash 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 dash." Obadiah walked away with a gloomy face. Peggy Carter walked up to him from the back room and whispered, "There's something wrong with him. He seems to care about Stark, but in fact he seems to want him to die. Yes, I suspect that he is behind the scenes, and he obviously intends to seize power." Natalia had the same opinion. "Get rid of Stark first, and next step, he is very likely to attack you. After all, you are the number 3 shareholder and can threaten him." Thor smiled meaningfully. "Then let me see how much he has." Quote. Leaving Thor's manor, Obadiah returned home with a haze on his face, and connected a video. The person in the video is the terrorist who kidnapped Stark. Why not do it? Our agreement is to kill him on the spot, not just kidnap him. The terrorist leader sneered. "You didn't tell me that the person to kill was Tony Stark. So, I have changed my mind now. This is a hen that can lay golden eggs. I'm afraid he can give me more money than you, many." FK, Obadiah roared angrily. "Triple the price, and kill them all. Wong Wangs, don't worry, I will naturally do this when the time comes. You can treat him as dead." There was a click, and the video was interrupted. Obadiah sat on the sofa and took a deep breath, pondered for a moment, and made another call. "Hey, help me solve a person, fake an accident or commit suicide." His tone was very cold. "Since you don't know what's good or bad, you can't blame me." However, he did not realize that his video calling software was not closed. "It's done, it really is him." In Thor's study room, a 14-year-old mixed-race girl with long dark brown hair clapped her hands excitedly in front of the computer desk. On the computer screen was the video of the call between Obadiah and the terrorists. With this, that guy can't help but want to, and he can send it to drink tea tomorrow. Then Thor turned to look at her. What's wrong? Natalia explained. If it's just to send that guy to jail, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. She knows the relationship between Thor and Jin Bin. With Jin Bin's ability, Stark can't move. It's not difficult to kill a secondary shareholder. After all, even the FBI has penetrated most of it for him. This little mixed-race girl is exactly the Daisy John who brought back to S.H.I.E.L.D. more than 10 years ago. Her current name is Sky. Thanks to her excellent hacking skills and other abilities, she is already a level 7 agent at a young age. Perhaps in a few years, she will become the youngest 10th level agent in the history of S.H.I.E.L.D. At the moment, Sky, who is still half new, was a little tangled. Hesitation said. However, according to the regulations, such important news should be reported to the higher level Terry. No problem. Natalia shook her hair. I'm a 10th level agent, just report to me. Sky. T. Thor glanced at Natalia in surprise, and she gave Natalia a wink in return. In the headquarters of a certain base in Afghanistan, the terrorist leader who hung up the video subconsciously looked at the progress of Stark in the surveillance, and then he became angry. I asked you to build missiles, what are you doing? Although I haven't read the book, I know that missiles are round. Boom _ Kicking open the cave gate, he couldn't help but greet Stark with a friendly greeting, and then issued an ultimatum. I want to see the result before tomorrow. Either prepare the missiles for me, or the whole world, they will all receive your death live broadcast. As he spoke, he kicked again, swaggeringly walked out of the cave, leaving two hard-working engineering men looking at each other. I said, shall we make a mock-up to fool them? Ethan said weakly. Otherwise they will still be able to see something is wrong later. Stark hesitated and shook his head. No, there is no time. Even if it can be delayed until tomorrow, it will be dead. The only hope is to make the armor as soon as possible, and then teach those bastards to be human. You were right. The two speeded up the progress, quickly molded various parts, and began to assemble them. Unfortunately, just when they were about to complete, the terrorist leader still became suspicious. Why do I feel that this thing looks less and less like a guided CDAG bomb? He waved his hand and ordered the two little soldiers to greet Stark and Ethan's old lady. Two soldiers walked to the door, knocked on the door a few times, and pushed the door open. Boom. The bomb installed on the gate exploded, alarming the entire base in an instant. The terrorist leader was clever and immediately brought a large group of people to Stark's cave. At this moment, Stark still has the last step left. His armor has been assembled. As long as he completes the last progress bar for starting the armor, he will be successful. The premise is to be able to complete. There was a sound of footsteps, and a large number of terrorists had rushed towards this side, and soon reached the entrance of the cave. Ethan glanced at the slow-reading progress bar, gritted his teeth suddenly, and picked up the AK dropped by the terrorist who had just entered the door. Wait, Ethan, what are you doing? Don't be impulsive, follow the plan, Stark exclaimed. Ethan shook his head. There's no time. Besides, this is my plan. As he spoke, he raised his AK, shouted hysterically and rushed to the door. Do not, Stark yelled, but he was now immobilized inside the suit. The gunfire rang out and ended quickly. But at this moment, the progress bar finally reached the end, and the line of sight slowly dimmed. When the terrorists entered the innermost laboratory, Stark disappeared, leaving only a metallic monster in the cave. Chug chug. People are always afraid of the unknown, and these desperados were no exception, and they shot immediately. When the bullet hit the armor, it had no effect except for a series of sparks. And at this moment, Stark's counterattack began. The world's first Iron Man armor, Mark I, is officially unveiled. As the first-generation iron armor that came out of Rush work, it is actually very average in all aspects. The outer shell is made of ordinary steel plates, which not only lacks defense, but is also too heavy and slow to move. If there is an anti-tank gun, even if it uses an M134 to shoot a wave, Stark will have to kneel. However, the equipment of these terrorists is naturally impossible to compare with the fully armed regular army, all AK-47. This thing is cheap, easy to use, easy to maintain, and can be bought everywhere. The disadvantage is that the power is average, and it hits the steel plate the most it makes a dent. Due to the lack of materials, the weapon system of the first-generation armor is not sufficient, basically relying on the 2 flame launchers on the arms. The steel battle armor spouted flames all the way, came out of the cave, and saw his Zinsho village mentor, Drive. Ethan, who was dying at the entrance of the cave. "Go, I'll take you to meet your family." He opened his helmet and said. Ethan shook his head. "My family is dead, I will see them soon." He coughed up blood, and said intermittently, "It's okay, let's go. Don't waste your life." The voice became lower and lower, and it was completely subsided. Outside the cave, a group of minions who heard the movement aimed their guns at the entrance of the cave. They don't know that what they are facing is no longer a dandy-rich second generation, but a real superhero. Fiery flames swept across, igniting the munitions and missiles piled up in the base, and just before the explosion, all the power was used in the propulsion system under his feet. Whoosh! The heavy iron lump, like a monkey jumping into the sky, rushed straight into the sky amidst the sound of a violent explosion, and lost power in midair and fell headlong. The aura of the protagonist in the Marvel world is still quite obvious. Also wearing a battle armor and falling from a high altitude, Stark only scratched a little bit, but his good friend Rhodes in the future fell into a high position. Drip. Congratulations to the host for completing the achievement, Avengers Assembly. Cumulatively make friends with 5 original historical Avengers members: Captain America, Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Iron Bamboo. Get 2,500,000 points. Wakanda T'Challa will not be Black Panther yet. At the moment when Stark's first-generation armor Mark I was officially launched, the points in the system column increased again, and it just reached 30 million. Seeing the description of the achievement, Thor knew that Stark had succeeded. This means that the Marvel Universe has entered a new era. The points reached 30 million, which is another integer, and Thor opened them all when he was free. Artifact, Infinity Gauntlet, 50 million points. Artifact, Stormbreaker, 60 million points. Artifact, Frostmourne, 60 million points. Venom Symbiote, 8 million points. The Fountain of Wisdom, the spring water of the Mimir Spring, 100 million points. Sentry Potion, 1 million points. Wait, Thor suddenly found a strange product. To be exact, the price behind the product was strange. Is the system in? Sentry Potion. Is that Sentry? If so, then you are in for a treat. According to Thor, who just passed through the meeting, he might have bought it right away. But now he has already figured out some details of the system. It is impossible to have such an obvious wrong price. Asking for flowers. The helpless voice of the system came. The prices of all items in the mall have their reasons, just like why Phoenix Force is cheap. This bottle of potion is indeed genuine, but not everyone can use it. First you have to redeem it. A drug addict named Robert Renaults. Sure enough, this is reality. What did you just say? The mall still sells characters. It's always possible, but most of the people you like can't afford to change. Wait. Point 0. Miss System suddenly had some hesitation. There is a very cost-effective character for sale for a limited time, but what? Thor looked at the list of heroes displayed by the system in confusion. I'll go, it's really expensive. Currently, there are 5 levels of characters available for selection. The prices of ordinary white, green, blue, and purple characters range from hundreds of thousands to tens of millions. Can't get past him who has transformed. And the price of golden characters starts at least 9 figures. Probably sell him to buy the cheapest one. Among the large array of products, there was a card that was on sale for a limited time that was particularly eye-catching. The head portrait was a blonde-haired girl who looked 12 or 13 years old and closed her eyes. He didn't recognize her. The important thing is that the price is just 30 million. Wouldn't it be another trap, like the Sentry Potion, which can't be used? Miss System thought about it, and said carefully, I can only tell you that if you are classified as a gold card, your strength must be qualified. And that's enough. As Thor said, he immediately clicked to buy, and the points were instantly cleared with a swish. Where are people? Thor looked at the empty room and the empty points, a little confused. The system swallowed points. A somewhat tangled voice came from the little sister. I didn't have time to say just now. Because it is a special price card, no delivery is provided. Do you want to go to the page to mention it immediately? Fair. On the grass at the foot of a mountain, a circle of light slowly appeared, and Thor walked out of it. The system is too messed up, right? You don't even provide delivery services, as did the Phoenix Force last time. After deducting the points, let me come to another world to kidnap you. What if I can't beat the other party? Thor was completely speechless. The crazy dis system lady. The little sister of the system felt guilty. It's not considered kidnapping. Since it is listed as an exchangeable object, it is natural to ensure that the other party will follow you back. Her voice got lower and lower, causing Thor to roll his eyes. Thor suddenly looked back at the portal. His eyes lit up and said, "Can this teleportation be used to connect two worlds?" Don't think about it. This thing is specific. Only you and the characters you choose can pass through. Moreover, after bringing people back, they will disappear. The dog system does not give a single loophole. Forget it. Let's see what this place is. Thor glanced around the desolate surroundings, speechless. Where did people come from this place? Why don't you just send me here and ask me to look for it all over the world? This way is not enough. The target will definitely appear near the portal. Be careful in the sky. Swish. Without the reminder from the young lady, Wenger has already heard the tearing air sounds. In this unknown otherworld, his vigilance was high, and for a moment Thor's armor covered his whole body, and Mjolnir appeared in his hand. Looking up, a fighter jet was plummeting towards him with black smoke. Oh, I thought I'd never come back. At the landing place at New York Airport, Stark was supported by Rhodes and slowly got off the plane. Seeing the stretcher being pushed, he quickly waved his hands. Are you kidding me? Tell them to go away. I suggest you'd better go to the hospital. As his good friend, Rhodes said sincerely, after all, everyone cares about your safety. No, 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 Stark shook his head. There are only two things on my mind right now. The first is to eat a hamburger, a Big Mac. Then find a model. I suggest you heal your injury. Rhodes smiled wryly. Shit. Damn, is that what I look like to you? Rhodes wanted to say yes, when Stark continued, I'm going to have a press conference. Rhodes was taken aback for a moment, and suddenly Stark seemed to be different from before. Why did it become dark? A burly figure rushed towards them, to be more precise, towards Tony Stark, but slipped and threw him to the ground. Boss, it's great that you're fine. Damn, many shareholders are worried these days. I'm starting to discuss the funeral with you. Stark poked his head out from under Happy's body, feeling his bones ached. Rod, call the stretcher back. I think I need to go to the hospital. Looking at the fighter plane falling from the sky, Thor retracted the hammer, subconsciously jumped up to hold it, and slowly lowered it to the ground. I thought that there was a high probability that the people in the fighter plane had been seriously injured or even killed. Unexpectedly, through the transparent top cover, he saw a girl who was still in shock, seemingly unharmed. It seems that the safety of this aircraft is not bad. This girl is exactly the one on the card. Lifting off the top cover of the stuck plane, the girl in the cabin looked at Thor curiously. Looking at the half-grown loli in front of him, Thor pulled her up, thinking about how to speak. Can't come to a game. Little girl, Uncle will take you to see the goldfish, right? That probably scares the little girl away. Just then, a calm voice came from behind. Let her go. The voice was calm, but it made Thor vigilant for a moment. Because not even Thanos could have appeared behind him so quietly. He turned his head slowly, looked at the tall figure in blue and red cape behind him, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Let go of her. This is a matter for us Kryptonians, and no one else needs to intervene. Thor, miss, is there any kryptonite in the mall? Yes, but now you have run out of points and can't afford to buy. Thor, ha ha ha. Look who's here. Our big boss, Tony Stark. Stark, who had just got out of the car, was embraced by the attentive Obadiah, who dragged him into the venue. Numerous reporters have already prepared to take their positions. Stark sat down under the podium in such a disrespectful manner, took out a hamburger and took a bite. After a while of emotion, Stark concluded, the wonderful journey of these few days has opened my eyes. I realize that I can do more things for this world, not just create explosions. Obadiah's face changed, and he had a bad feeling. Stark glanced at the breathless crowd in the audience, and smiled lightly. So, I have decided to close the weapons department of Stark Industries from now on. An understatement, like putting a bomb in the crowd, the reporters boiled instantly. Tony, you need to think hard about your decision today. We're building weapons, it's our job, we're reducing chaos in this world. Obadiah tried to persuade Stark, hoping that he would change his mind. Whatever the humanitarian issues with making weapons, it's bullshit from Obadiah's point of view. The key is that it makes money. Why do you want to make so much money when you have money? If you lose your conscience, you will lose it. No, we've been adding to the confusion. Besides, we can find other directions. What direction? Make a bottle. No, we should reconsider the arc reactor technology. After all, Obadiah did not persuade Stark, even if he showed the heirs of the elders, it was useless. Stark has a good temper, let alone this elder, even his own father, Howard, don't even try to persuade him. Looking at the stocks that continued to drop to the limit, Obadiah decided that Stark should not be allowed to act willfully like this any longer. He is the one who will take over Stark Industries, and he will lose all his money. Stark's deeds have definitely offended all the shareholders, this time he must be brought down. Frustrated, Obadiah decided to go to Thor again. After all, the shares in the other party's hands are there, and Stark must be dealt with before he can be brought down. Thor didn't have time to deal with the fat man now, he had a more difficult opponent to deal with. To be precise, he, who always likes to use force to solve problems, may not be able to handle it this time. Clark Kent, or Da Chao, the son of the universe, the son of DC. Apart from kryptonite, the only weakness is the low magic resistance, which is only for his almost full physical resistance. Besides, even if the magic resistance is 0, the blood is full. Anyway, if a huge lightning strike hits, the opponent can take it directly. Even with a super buff like Heavenly God down to earth, he was still under pressure all the way. Moreover, the other party obviously kept their hands back. No wonder the existence of a supergirl like a superclass only charges 30 million cabbage prices. It turns out that there is a super fierce wolf dog next to her. Stop it, Carl Al. He didn't do me any harm, he saved me. The girl yelled to stop, but the two turned a deaf ear. Quote. Swinging a hammer casually, he was very lucky to trigger the severe hit, stun. Da Chao's movement stagnated for a while. Thor quickly made up a storm hammer to stun, and then he took a breath. The transformation state disappeared, and Thor looked at Da Chao, who woke up immediately and decisively put the hammer on him. Shall we chat? Facing an opponent he couldn't beat, Thor decided to cheat. I am not your enemy, and I have no malice towards this world. To be precise, I come from another world. Thor deliberately stood on the side of Da Chao, spreading his hands to show no hostility. There is no way, the other party's eyes can radiate heat, and being sprayed is no joke. Parallel universe. Da Chao froze for a moment, thinking about this possibility. So you're going to take her? My cousin. After some simple explanations, Clark, that is, Dakao, roughly understood his purpose of coming. Thor didn't have to hide it either. So, would you like to go to another world? Clark seemed to be very talkative, and he was not in a hurry to express his opinion, but asked the girl next to him. In a sense, letting her make her own decision already shows his attitude, just like a parent asking her daughter in a TV series, would you like to go with him? The girl hesitated, and said in a low voice, my original mission when I came to Earth was to protect you. But now, you are the most powerful person in this universe, and you don't need my protection, and I don't have a mission anymore. After all, the world only needs one Superman. I want to try a different life. Clark nodded. Well, I hope you can let her spend her childhood safe and sound. I will, Thor said, took the girl's hand, and walked slowly into the portal. Wait, your hammer. A voice came from behind, and Thor, who turned his head, only saw Clark throwing a hammer back at him. A few minutes after Thor disappeared, a luxurious Batmobile roared up beside Clark. A man in a black battle suit got out of the car, looked at the scene and asked, he left? Your cousin also left. Clark chuckled. Isn't this exactly what you want? You have always been very wary of humans or non-humans with powerful super abilities. Bruce Wayne shook his head. I just think you just let him go, Diana will make trouble for you. Here, from now on, will be your room. Take the girl to the room on the top floor, and Thor puts her here. When this room was first built, it was designed as a landscape room. Every wall can become transparent, and there is a very nice balcony. In addition to the convenience of viewing the view, this room also has one of the biggest features: it is convenient to bask in the sun. The poor little girl doesn't know that this handsome uncle plans to make her into chocolate. Introduce Thor Odinson, born on another planet like you, in a place called Asgard. The girl whispered, Kayla Zuo Al, just call me Kayla. What should I call you? Uncle, or brother? You should still be called Big Brother. It's already enough of a headache for Natalia to call uncle all day long, and Peggy Carter and the others often look at themselves like animals. If there is one more. Boom boom boom. There was a sudden knock on the door, and Pepper Potts broke in. Who is she? Pepper Potts looked helpless. Boss, I won't say anything about taking the girl home, but isn't this age too young? Indeed, not counting the 24 years sleeping in the universe, the current Supergirl Kayla is only 13 years old, 1 year younger than Natalia back then. Thor stretched out his finger and tapped her head. What are you thinking about? She is my sister. Pepper Potts glanced at him with contempt. Forget it, what are you explaining to me? By the way, Obadiah has been waiting in the living room for half an hour. It seems that he has something to ask you. I'll be right there. Oh, by the way, where is my sister? You're finally here. I'm looking for you this time because I have something very important to discuss with you. Obadiah waited in the living room for half an hour, and finally waited for Thor. Not even a cup of tea. Forcibly suppressing the displeasure in his heart, he immediately explained Stark's decision, and finally said righteously, Stark must be crazy, even wanting to close the weapons department. Stockholders are already crazy. If you don't stop him, it will be very difficult. Soon the shares in our hands will become a piece of waste paper. So, Thor was expressionless, and sneered secretly in his heart, it's just a bunch of ignorant guys, and it won't take long for the shares of Stark Industries to skyrocket, so he just waited to collect it. No, does it Zhao, but he didn't even think about buying bottom at a low price. The number of shares in the hands of retail investors is limited, and he doesn't like such a small amount of money, and he will slaughter fat if he wants to. The Obadiah in front of me is a fat sheep. Seeing the figure walking in from the door, Thor smiled lightly and said, Mr. Hardy, compared to Stark, I think we have another issue to talk about. Outside the door, several people walked in slowly, and Obadiah's face froze immediately. These people were the ones he hired to assassinate Thor, and then mysteriously disappeared. What do you mean? Who are these people? Although he knew that the other party already knew it, Obadiah was still expressionless, refusing to admit it, and maintained his posture through experience. But he is panicking now, otherwise he wouldn't even notice the green light in the eyes of the person there. Since Mr. Tower is not sincere, then I will not bother. Obadiah left in a hurry. Pepper Potts stepped forward and asked, just let him go. I thought you were going to make some exchanges with him. Thor laughed and said, exchange? No, he can't afford the price I want. Besides, even if an old fox like this has been lurking for decades, even if he signs the contract to death, he will definitely find various opportunities to take advantage of the loopholes. Then what do you want? All his fortune. At least on Earth, money 220 still counts. In the future Avengers, it is obvious that Captain America is the nominal leader, but many heroes still follow Stark during the Civil War. Just relying on the little money of a few heroes, I'm afraid they will eat dirt. Thor doesn't have the patience to start his own company, he really doesn't have the level and patience, so it is very important to have a stable cash cow. More importantly, new tasks are coming. Drip. Accept the mission, to get rich overnight, to become the largest shareholder of Stark Industries. Time limit. Before the start of the Avengers Alliance 1 storyline. Task reward. Start a new function of the system. Failure penalty. This function cannot be opened permanently. The stock price of Stark Industries fell again and again, and the major shareholders, CDFC, were all in tears, wishing to kick Stark out of the company immediately, or at least force him to change his mind. Arc reactor. Come on, this thing is too much ahead of the Earth's technology, even giving them a sample may not be able to make it. It's a pity that, as the largest shareholder, unless Obadiah and Thor can fight together, their combined shares can surpass Stark, otherwise Stark's position will be stable as drive. At this time, Stark started the closed mode, and he began to try to make a new armor. Within a few days, Mark II was born. Its development officially marks the birth of Iron Man. This is an experimental model of Iron Man created by Tony Stark with strong financial resources and ultra-high technology, and its performance has been significantly improved in all aspects. At the same time, it is also the first armor that can achieve continuous flight. The hands and boots can release arc pulses at the same time, creating ultrasonic waves so that the armor can fly at high speed. The only disadvantage is that due to material problems, the armor will freeze at high altitudes, which will cause the entire armor system to collapse. Ouch. JARVIS, open the wings and slow down, we're icing up, we need to de-ice. Stark in armor fell to the ground like a shooting star. Big brother, what is that? It doesn't seem to be a shooting star. Kayla sat in the yard with her chin propped up, looked at the falling arc in the air and asked Thor beside her, it seems to be a flight device. Could it be that there is also a me in this world who fell to the earth? When she first came to this world, everything was very strange, so Thor stayed with her most of the time these days. After hearing her question, Thor couldn't help laughing. Don't worry, there is no Krypton in this world, and there is no use of kryptonite. However, although the one in the sky is not a Kryptonian, he has a super ability called Krypton ability. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. With the unremitting efforts of JARVIS, Stark finally restarted the system, stabilized the falling trend, and avoided a mess. Seeing that the lights in Thor's manor were still on from afar, he decided to pretend to be a coward and then flew there. Hey, make room, I'm landing, shouted Stark from afar. Thor hugged Kayla and hid away, watching Stark fly to the sky above the yard and wobble to a stop. Power off. Yes, sir. Thump. On the first flight, Stark miscalculated his whereabouts, and carried him into the small fountain in the yard, pretending to be an idiot. Climbing out in a mess, he opened the helmet that had entered the water. Would you believe me when I said it was an accident? Suddenly seeing the cute little girl next to Thor, I couldn't help but whistle. Kayla stood back with disgust and asked, Big brother, who is he? Oh, my nephew. Your nephew looks so old, older than you. Stark would think the little girl was not cute at all. Moreover, according to this name, his seniority seems to be a bit young. Damn it, I'll come back to you after I fix the landing problem. Angrily, he got up and was about to leave, but Thor stopped him. Do you want to know who is behind the kidnapping of you? Stark hesitated for a while, then shook his head, I don't want to. It would be Thor's turn to be stunned. Don't want to. Stark glared at him. Because I know you are not that kind, there must be some conditions, I don't want to be sold by you. Then, he smiled confidently, I can check it myself. Who will check it for you? Is Happy that stupid? Thor patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, I don't want you to pay anything, I can also help you solve the other party in person, the only condition is to solve your opponent his qualifications. Stark raised his eyebrows. My opponent? I have no objection, but Washington may not agree. People from S.H.I.E.L.D. will definitely trouble you. You don't have to worry about that, just nod your head. Thor said, and took out a USB flash drive. Everything you want to know is in it, and there are some other things you are interested in. Stark took the USB flash drive and wondered, why didn't you just tell me the name? Thor shook his head meaningfully. For one thing, you won't believe it without evidence. Besides, I'm afraid you'll insult me on the spot. TCH, am I such a tasteless person? It's fine, it's enough to know who it is, and I can handle it myself. Stark pursed his lips and left, unaware of Thor's sinister intentions. In fact, if it was just an ordinary enemy, after killing the other party, he would really look down on swallowing the other party's assets. Tony Stark is not short of money now, nor will he be short of money in the future. But it's a different story if Obadiah owns shares of Stark Industries. Well, it was too late for him to regret it after he went back and looked at the USB flash drive. As for whether he will not admit it, just beat him up. Asgard, a hidden place. Loki was sitting opposite a cloaked figure. Tell me, what can you do with me? Then, I can decide whether to save your life. Although Loki was smiling, his eyes were full of murderous intent. The man in the cloak didn't take it seriously, and chuckled lightly, kill me. Oh, It's easy to kill me, but there are some things that can't be changed by killing me. What do you mean? The man in the cloak smiled mysteriously. A pale hand suddenly stretched out from his long sleeve and grabbed Loki's wrist. Click. A dagger was inserted into the cloaked man's heart in an instant. Luigi pulled out the dagger and looked at his wrist. I said, some things can't be changed by killing me. The cloaked man's voice was weak, but there was a sneer of scheming at the corner of his mouth. With enough ice energy, you can make your disguise invisible. With a plop, he fell to the ground without making a sound. The cloak was broken, and it turned out to be a frost troll. Shish. Loki looked down at his wrist. A stream of icy energy had been absorbed into it, and his arm instantly turned pale, like a frosty titan. It took several seconds for Loki's arm to return to normal. But his expression at the moment was unprecedentedly dark. Holy place too, Ebony Maw is reporting to Thanos. He killed our people and didn't seem to believe it, Ebony Maw said. Thanos didn't take it seriously. It doesn't matter, for such a self-proclaimed smart person, when he has doubts about something, he will definitely try to prove it. Ebony Maw flatters. My lord is right. Thanos stood up. My great plan will never be blocked by anyone. Whether it is Odin, Ancient One, or the entire Asgard. Now, plant a bomb for them first, and one day it will destroy Asgard. Totally destroyed. Oh, suddenly thought of something, turned around and asked, recently, how long has that person been here? It's been almost half a month. He should have realized that you are invincible, my lord. Beside them, Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight have expressionless faces. Thanos was abused every time, and tens of millions of his subordinates died, but I am ashamed to say this. No wonder Thanos valued being the second child of the Black Order. Corvus Glaive couldn't have said that kind of flattery. But no matter how stupid they are, they know that they cannot express their objections at this time, otherwise they will be slapping Mishwang in the face. Only Black Dwarf couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth, and made a poof, and immediately greeted Ebony Maw's angry and Thanos' calm eyes. You deserve it, you despise the trash at the bottom of the chain. Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight cursed at the same time. Why not do it? Our agreement is to kill him on the spot, not just kidnap him. You didn't tell me that it was Tony Stark who was going to kill. So, I've changed my mind now. This is a hen that lays golden eggs, and he can give me more than you. FK, triple the price and kill him. Don't worry, I will naturally do this when the time comes. You can treat him as dead. Stark turned off the video, his face pained. He never imagined that Thor's own enemy was planning to tie. No, it was the person who murdered him, and he would be the one who watched him grow up. In various aspects helped to take care of himself for decades, the company veteran, Obadiah. In addition, there are some other files in the USB flash drive, revealing some inhuman props produced by Obadiah without telling him, as well as weapons sold to terrorists without authorization. No wonder, Thor said he wouldn't believe it. On the other side, in a laboratory, Obadiah is facing a pair of burly armor, Limines Mark I. The armor that was originally broken has been basically repaired, and many stronger weapons have even been installed. Only there is a big hole in its heart. The most important part of the iron armor, the energy core, also known as the arc reactor. Tell me, how long will it take to shrink this thing down enough to fit in? Obadiah grabbed an experimenter's chest with one hand, pointed at a huge energy battery 2 or 3 meters high with the other, and asked because of his voice. Sorry, this is too difficult, even beyond the current level of technology. The experimenters showed embarrassment. Fart. Stark's in the cave, it's done in a day. Sorry, I'm not Stark. Obadiah vented his anger, and he also knew that without Stark's technology rumors, he could not replicate the arc reactor. At this time, an employee came to tell him about Stark's whereabouts. Just came back from Thor's manor, with a serious look, locked in the study so that no one will disturb you. Obadiah looked erratic. Since that guy knew that I had someone assassinate him, he probably knew that I was the one who kidnapped Tony. He and Tony wore a pair of pants. Could it be? People with a guilty conscience tend to think more, but he was right this time. He decided that he couldn't wait any longer and had to act first. When doing it, the more ruthless people tend to take advantage. When Stark was still thinking about how to deal with Obadiah on the sofa, the other party had already taken the initiative. He brought down Stark, who had not yet put on his armor, with a paralyzing device that was obviously not approved for production, and took away the arc reactor in his chest. "Stark, you're really smart. Your city boat reactor and my bunch of bastards can't get it out anyway," Obadiah proudly said, "but I can take it directly from you. Just wait, Stark Industries will be mine soon. Unfortunately you won't be able to see it." As he spoke, he left the villa with the reactor, leaving Stark alone to die. Stark was really desperate at this moment. In the original book, Pepper Potts secretly left behind the first-generation reactor that he replaced, which saved his life at a critical moment. And now, Pepper Potts is processing documents for Thor at his estate. Fortunately, he also has a loyal Happy. "Oh, hell, boss, what's wrong with you?" Happy's exclamation made Stark, who had closed his eyes waiting to die, open his eyes. He stretched out his hand with difficulty, gestured on his chest, and then pointed out the door. Do you want me to take you out?" Veins bulged on Stark's forehead, and he struggled to make a sound. Battery, underground, trash can. Finally, Happy didn't make a mistake this time, and hurried to the trash can in the basement of the villa, rummaging through it. Fortunately, Obadiah's showdown was early this time, and Stark only replaced the first-generation reactor this afternoon. If it was more than one day, the reactor would have been disposed of along with other garbage. It would really be good. Just before the shrapnel was about to enter the heart, Harpy finally brought the arc reactor and couldn't wait to pretend to be Stark's chest. "Ah, this year was so unkind to me, I almost died again." Stark gasped heavily, gratefully said, "If you hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid I would have lost my job tomorrow." Happy smiled. "Thanks to Mr. Thor, he called and asked me to come to you to prepare a document for the transfer of equity, saying that it will be used tomorrow." Stark's face darkened again. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.